Welcome everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's webinar, AWS Security Essentials, Key to Effective Cloud Encryption. And presenting today's topic is Terumi. Terumi is an Amazon AAI training consultant and author holding more than 25 years of experience in IT. Her passion for cloud computing developed at a very early age. Being a teenager, she always showed her enthusiasm for understanding the technologies that make computers tick. This deep sense of curiosity on technology led her to achieve all the associate, professional, and specialty certifications and was recognized as an AWS Authorized Instructor Champion. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Cloud Practice Area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. In today's session, we'll explore top AWS data encryption methods, access control, and network access security frameworks critical for protecting sensitive data. The webinar will help IT and security professionals master the multiple ways of securing network access to AWS resources. And now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Terumi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, and hi everyone, and thank you so much for attending this webinar. My name is Terumi Laskowski. I'm a AWS Authorized Instructor, and today I have a very short topic, but on key to effective cloud encryption on AWS. So let's get started. And by the way, if you have any questions, I will answer them at the end of my session. All right, so let's go ahead and go right to the topic of Here we go. All right, so before we get started, let's talk about what type of encryption services are available on AWS. Now, I'm hoping that you have some background in encryption to kind of understand this slide, but AWS actually has all the encryption types that we normally use. So AWS supports symmetric, which is basically for garbling up your message to protect confidentiality of any sensitive data. AWS also has services around asymmetric encryption, which is basically for authentication, and initially it was used for something called key exchange. But anyway, AWS has that. And also, last but not least, it has one-way, or a lot of people like to call it the hash encryption. It's used for creating fingerprints of files. And that is actually for integrity purposes, so that no one, you can prove to yourself that no one has tampered with any of your data, that either it's a file or network traffic, whatever you want to make sure no one actually came and tampered with it, you could definitely use the one-way hash. So AWS actually has all these features. But the one that are pretty prominent is symmetric. And there is a website on that, and I hope that you'll be able to get a link to this later after this webinar. But it's a pretty short site, but it does explain about the data encryption services that are supported in AWS. But I gotta tell you, there's actually a lot more here than what's in the blog. But if you go here, it will give you some short overview of the AWS services and encryption. All right, so today I actually have a demonstration ready for you. And because AWS does have a great symmetric encryption, which is for confidentiality purposes, I'm going to pick one service that is commonly used in combination with encryption, which is S3. So I'm going to do a demonstration on encryption in S3. But you may be wondering, hey, I don't use AWS that often. What is S3? Well, S3 is the AWS solution to what's called the object storage. Now, object storage in general is a place where you can actually dump all your files. It can be, as you can see on my slide here, it could be text file, it could be video, audio, whatever. It can even be a binary file, maybe an executable file. And S3 will look at that and say, oh, I just see ones and zeros, right? So, and these files could be like humongous. Now, the reason why S3 and encryption goes well together is because, unfortunately, in the past, some companies and some individuals have accidentally shared their pretty sensitive information to the public unknowingly, right? So it's kind of embarrassing, right? And you make a big news because you've kind of kept this very sensitive passwords and stuff by accident in a publicly open S3 bucket, right? So, and even if you're not doing that, it's always a good idea, right, to make sure that you can encrypt your files. So S3 has those features. So let's take a look. Now, I also included a link to the Amazon S3 service page, just so that you can look and see what this is all about. But anyway, so today's demo, as I say, is about how do you lock all those files. And let me call the proper term objects, because that's what S3 calls them. Those are objects. And we'll encrypt them for confidentiality purposes using symmetric encryption. Okay, all right, so here we go. Now, in S3, there are 4 ways that you can actually encrypt your object. Okay, and we'll talk about why there's so many. How come there isn't just one? Okay, but they all have a different reason for being there. And by the way, these names are CSE-C, SSE-C, SSE-S3, and SSE-KMS. And say, okay, so that's just a bunch of gobbledygook. What's that, right? Well, the name, as you can see, you have the left part, then the hyphen, and the right part. Okay, so the left part is it's a convention of where the encryption is actually being performed. So CSE is client-side encryption. Right? So that means a client, in this case myself, is going to be doing the encryption. And on the other side of the hyphen, which is C, this is where who's going to provide the secret key. So you may know that symmetric encryption requires one key, which is a secret key. So it's almost like locking the door, right? So you have the key for your door, and when you lock the door, you use the key, and then when you open the door, you have to use the same key. So same thing here. With symmetric encryption, you need one key to lock, that is to encrypt, and to open, that is to decrypt. Okay. So let me go through all the names here then, right? So SSE-C, which is number 2, is server-side encryption, and customer provides the key. Number 3 is server-side encryption, and S3, the service provides the key. And then last but not least, you have the SSE-KMS, which is server-side encryption, key management service, which is another security encryption-related service that AWS has. So there you go. So I'm going to show you all 4 ways on how you can actually encrypt the file that you want to upload onto S3. All right, so the first one is CSE-C, right? So customer-side encryption, customer key. Good to go. So if you look at the picture that I have for you, on the left, you see at the top left, that's all what the client, that's me, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I have a sensitive plain text, and then I have the secret key. So remember, the importance about this particular method is that I have the text, I have the key, I have the algorithm, because I'm the one that's going to do the encryption. So as you can see, I do the encryption, going through the encryption algorithm. Perhaps this would be AES 256 or AES, other options on AES. Then the encrypted text is already created, as you can see there, all on my side. And then I'll put that over into S3, and it goes through the cloud. It's encrypted already, and AWS receives it, and it goes right into the bucket. So as far as the bucket's concerned, remember I told you S3 doesn't care really what you put in there. So you say, oh, but it's an encrypted file. Is it okay? And yeah, it's fine because bucket doesn't care, right? It says, oh, it just looks like another bunch of ones and zeros. Okay, so there you go. So that's the first one. So let's see. The next slide here. The first thing to do that I actually did on this demonstration is to create a bucket. So here I created this something called my demo bucket. I do have a blurred up portion. The S3 bucket, the name have to be unique, so I put some random numbers in there. But just to kind of keep it clean, I just kind of took that out. So I just created a my bucket, and as you can see, there's nothing in there. It says object, nothing there. Okay, good to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is now with the CSE-C, I have to use a software development kit that the AWS provides. Okay, so AWS provides, I think, like 3 or 4 examples on how do you do this. Okay, so I've taken an example from the link that I have below, the Go example or Golang example. So I have to import all that stuff. As you can see, I have to import on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 4th line down. There is the S3 crypto module, and also on the 5th line down, I have to bring in the KMS module. So these are some of the modules that are related to crypto in AWS. So I have to import that. If you don't understand Golang, that's okay, right? So there's a Java example and .NET example as well. So check out the link if you're using the other languages. Then the bulk of the body here, it's kind of small. Let's see if I can actually make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, here we go. So if I make this bigger, you can see some preliminary assignments. So I have to tell, hey, where's my bucket? Okay. As you can see, the important part here is this. So see where it says key is who, right? A bucket name, and then the input is put object input. So that's basically setting myself up to passing the key over to AWS. Well, I'm sorry, using the key, specifying the key that I'm going to use to encrypt, and point to the bucket that I'm going to be putting my encrypted object. Then the object is just going to say hello world, right? So you see there, okay? So it just creates a file that says hello world. Then right under it on line 39, I'm actually putting that object into S3, okay? So when I do that, it's going to do the encryption first. Then once it's encrypted, it's going to take that encrypted value and put it into the bucket, okay? So that's basically what this program is all about. Anyway, so let's move on. What happens? Well, after that, I'm going to run it, okay? So here we are. I just ran it, okay? Go run my program. Now, that came back without any errors. Good to go. And let's take a look at the bucket and see what happened. So when I went back to the bucket, okay, I was able to see that, yeah, indeed, the file was uploaded. Great, okay. So now I have to check to make sure that that thing is encrypted, right, and not just hello world in a text. And what I did was I actually downloaded it, okay, and then opened it up in my text file. And what happened was this, gobbledygook, right? So there you are. You could see for yourself that the file was actually encrypted when it was sent to S3. So that is a CSE S3, or CSE, I'm sorry, C, CSE-C. The next one up is the SSE-C, so server-side encryption customer key. So in this case, let me go ahead and zoom right in, okay? Notice the client part is very, very small, but here the client is providing the sensitive plain text, and client's also providing the key. Okay, so the key, and the reason why a client would do this is that maybe they already have a type of key management system on premises that, you know, there's no need for them to use AWS help for that. So in that case, they may want to do that. But as you can see, as they're sending that sensitive plain text to AWS, it's not encrypted. Okay, so you have to kind of make sure that you're using encrypted network channel, such as a SSL TLS, you know, transport layer security, so that, you know, plain text is protected as it's traveling across to AWS. Then what happens is that AWS grabs this and says, oh, I see the plain text, oh, I see the key, and it's going to encrypt the text, right? So it's going to go through the encryption algorithm, and S3 is going to do that. Then that encrypted text is, once again, it's going to go into the bucket. So the difference, of course, is that now, even though all the pieces that AWS needs is still being created by the client, which is the text and the key, now it's S3 that's going to use those things and to encrypt the actual data. So there you go, okay? So let's see how this is going to work. All right, so in this example, I kept that bucket, right? So that bucket is there, so I'm not going to go through creating a new bucket, okay? And then I'm just going to create a file, right? So foo2.txt file, okay? It just says hello world once again. And on the next section, this is the way it's going to work. So remember, in this case, I still have to create a key. So if you see the line, it's pretty close to the top where it says open SSL with all that stuff, you know, going for it. That's the command that gives, you know, creates for me a key, okay? And it's using AES, right? So that OpenSSL program is usually included in Windows and also Linux-based systems. If you don't, you know, it's an open source software that you can always download. And as you can see, as the output, there is a key value right in the middle, okay? And that's going to be my key that I'm going to be sending to AWS. And as you already saw, I already made the file. So the next command I do is AWS S3CP, which stands for copy. I'm going to copy this file onto S3, and I say which file, foo2.txt, and the bucket, okay? Then telling it that, hey, you know, there's the SSE-C now, okay, and here's my key. Right, so you see the key tagged on there. And this also uploaded successfully. So let's take a look and see what happened after I did that, okay? So here we are. There's a foo to the txt file now inside my bucket. Okay. And let's take a look and see. Now, in this case, I'm going to try to open this, okay, in AWS. So there is a open menu once I select it, okay. And what came out was this, and says, oh, it looks like an error. So let's take a look. Yeah, indeed, it says error, but let's look at the message that came back with the error. It says, hey, the object was stored using a form of server-side encryption. Aha, right? So you can see that that file was encrypted using the key that I provided. The correct parameter must be provided to retrieve the object. So what they're saying here is that, look, you have to give me the key to open this file up, or else you're not going to see it. Okay, so that also proves that, once again, that file was successfully encrypted. Okay. Alrighty, so that was SSE server-side encryption customer provided key. Okay. The third one that I'm going to show you is this one here, which is server-side encryption using the S3 key. Now, this is actually, we used to have to kind of specify that, you know, we wanted to do the server-side encryption S3 key, okay? But now AWS made it, and it's pretty recent too, where this is the default. So as a default, this gets turned on. And so what is this, right? So let's take a look. Okay. So what's happening now is, as you can see on the client side, the only thing that the client provides is the sensitive plain text, right? No key, no nothing, and they'll send that across AWS. And once again, you should use a protected network path in sending this text. It goes to AWS, and now the key is being provided by S3. So there it is, right? Key generated and managed by S3. And then you combine the plain text with that, and the encryption is being done on the server side, which is on the S3 side, and a ciphertext goes in. Okay, so that's pretty convenient, right? Because we, as a user, do not have to manage the key. It just comes with it. Okay, so let's take a look and see what I did. So here, I'm actually going to the bucket, okay, and looking at what's called the properties. All right, it's a properties for the bucket, and I'm going to show to you this thing called a data default encryption. Okay, and it might be hard to see, but it says Amazon S3 managed key SSE-C. And this one here says server-side encryption is automatically applied to new objects stored in this bucket. And once again, this is the default. So even if you don't do anything, this thing is turned on. Alrighty? Okay, so that is, so I just checked to make sure that was turned on. Then, once again, I upload the file. I say, hey, I'm going to upload it. But as you can see, you know, I'm not putting the key in there or anything like that. I'm just saying, okay, AWS S3 copy. Right into my bucket, and then it came back and say, great, it's been uploaded. So let's go and check the bucket, right? So here's the bucket. I've actually deleted all the other ones, and so that, you know, I just wanted to use the same file, so I delete all the other ones. So now you can see the bucket actually has that file in there. And this time, rather than opening it, I'm going to show you the property of that file to make sure that it is encrypted. Okay, so here's the file, and I go to the file, not the bucket, but the file, okay? And then I open up the property for the file, and there's something called server-side encryption settings, and it says there, hey, Amazon S3 managed key SSE-C. Okay, so we know that that object has been encrypted using that. All right, last but not least, we're gonna go into SSE KMS. So here we are. So what's the difference? Okay, they kind of sort of look the same as the SSE-C, but one major difference is that the sensitive plain text goes in, that doesn't change, right? It goes through the network, have to be protected, that doesn't change. It reaches the AWS, and this is where it changes, right here. The key is now being created by this thing called the KMS, right? So a key is generated by KMS, and then it's used for encryption. So the key is not being generated by S3 like the previous one. It's KMS. Okay. And encryption goes on, and same thing, the ciphertext goes into the bucket, and the key is being managed both by KMS and S3. Okay, so that's going to be the major difference. So I have a small presentation for you after this one about explaining what the KMS is. So kind of hold your thought on this. Okay, just understand that there is another service that's providing the key, and then we're doing the encryption with it. Alrighty. So then I'm going to go back to my file like I did before. Okay, and oh, by the way, I want to show you. So in this case, because I am using KMS, okay, I actually needed to create something called the KMS customer master key, and this is what I'm showing you here. Okay. So I have the customer managed key, and I've created this key. Okay, and that key is being used for my setup, for my bucket. Okay, so I'm going to go same thing to the encryption properties of the bucket. Right. So you see here, before it was hang on here. Before it was Amazon S3 managed key, but now I've changed it to key management service key, which is SSE KMS, and I had to specify which key do I want to use, right, to do all this process. Okay, so there you go. I've selected those. Now that I have everything all set up for KMS, okay, I'm going to upload the file again, like you did, you've seen before. There it is. I've just uploaded it. Okay. Then I go back into the bucket, check to make sure, yes, indeed, it's been uploaded. It's good. It's there. Then once again, I'm going to go back into my file and look at the file properties that's been updated, and see here it's a server-side encryption setting, and indeed now it's been changed to AWS Key Management Service Key, and it's using that key that I specified. All right, so there you go. So we've just covered all 4 ways of how you can actually encrypt that data for S3, right? So just once again, I just want to just quickly review with you, what we went through, just all the 3 things that we did. So let's see here. Right, so we did symmetric key encryption, okay, and we had, let's see here, right? These are all the different ways that you've seen it, okay. The customer side, client side encryption client key, server side encryption client key, server side encryption S3 key, and server side encryption KMS. Now, to wrap this webinar up, I do want to show you, a little thing about KMS, right? Because KMS did, wonderful things on the last exercise. So here, what is KMS? Well, KMS is a way for you to enhance your security of your encryption keys. So what the KMS does is this. This is the flow of how KMS works, right? So at the top, we have the plain text data, okay? And what they call the data key is the secret key that I mentioned. So it's the key that I've been talking about. Oh, you have the key, there it is, that's the data key, right? And put it through the data algorithm, and you have the ciphertext. So you've seen that over and over on my demonstration. But the problem is, how do you protect that data key? Okay, and the way to protect the data key is to encrypt it, right? So you get this thing called the master key popping up. Okay, well, this master key is being provided by the KMS. So the KMS is actually helping to protect your data key. So you see at the bottom line, you have the data key, which is the same one as the top one. The master key that's created by KMS is encrypted, okay? And then encrypted version of the key is also inside the S3 bucket. So as you can see on the encrypted message is inside one place, but they're all encrypted, okay? So KMS does a lot more than that, but that's basically what KMS does in this particular example that I went through. And just to kind of give you, what's behind KMS, that green part right there is the KMS. That's the major part of the KMS. That gray part, yeah, that's the all the application integration that KMS has. But KMS actually has this really hardened storage for the keys. They're called HSM. So HSM stands for Hardware Security Module, and Hardware Security Modules, as the name says, it's hardware, right? And it's for security. And it's actually for generating keys and protecting keys. It's highly tamper-proof, and AWS actually uses a fleet of these things, right? So depending upon your company or your need, you can go ahead and use KMS, which has the enhanced security to protect your encryption key. But for some customers, this is still not enough. mainly because, an auditor may say, oh, you're letting AWS do everything. Like, you're not managing anything. Like, what's up with that, right? So see on the left-hand side, you see something called Cloud HSM Cluster. There's actually another service in AWS which actually will provision for you a HSM server or servers or these devices for your use only. You will have to pay extra price for that, but you actually get to manage the keys that are inside your Cloud HSM and not AWS. So if you want additional on top of KMS, additional security, then you could definitely go ahead and use Cloud HSM. Anyway, and last but not least, I wanted to show you KMS actually integrates with tons of other services. S3 is just one, right? So here's the page. Check it out if you want to know, which services you can actually use KMS for. And with that, you understand that these services also does provide encryption capabilities, just like S3. Okay, hey, that was a short one, okay? And I hope you enjoyed the demonstration and learned something new about both S3 and also about the KMS, and last but not least, encryption on AWS. Okay, are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Thank you, Terumi. That was very informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And now I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Rimi, our vendor manager, to introduce our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you so much. And once again, a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined our today's session. Now, I would like to take you all through some of our handpicked resources, which we think will immensely help in accelerating your learning journey on AWS. Starting off with a quick overview of Netcom Learning, who we are. So what sets us apart from the other cloud training leaders is something that we have defined here. We have been recognized as a #1 partner of Microsoft, and we feel immense proud in mentioning here that we have recently been awarded the Learning Partner of the Year Award 2022, which was around 3,900 nominations from all around the world, and Microsoft recognized Netcom Learning as the #1 partner. Also, a major driver of our expertise is our 24 plus years of industry presence, having serviced over 80% of the Fortune 500 companies in the B2B and the B2G space. Moving to the recommended courses, which we think will best suit your learning journey. What you see right now are some of our upcoming training batches on the top courses, which you can register for. The dates have been mentioned, but in case you have any queries regarding the same, you can at any time reach out to our team. We also have a mix of the most relevant resources, which will help you get a better understanding on some of the other AWS courses. Coming to some of the customized programs that Netcom Learning has for its learners, we can start with the AWS Cloud Skilling Program that helps you to develop role-based cloud skills, working side by side our champion-level AWS authorized instructors who train cloud professionals on the latest AWS technologies and tools. So as a part of the program, you and your organization may also be eligible for free AWS certification exam vouchers and extended lab facilities for up to 5 weeks on the completion of the training. So it's a highly customizable program wherein the idea is that we connect our instructors, our AWS authorized instructors, with your teams to understand the learning needs of your team, and basis on the understandings, we devise the entire program as per the learning needs of the team. Our free AWS e-learning resources follow a self-paced training model. So this is a free access resources that you can access at any time, wherein you also get the liberty of accessing the extensive course-related videos on the go, covering the availability on the device of your choice. So meaning, doesn't matter if you are at your home, in your office, or if you are traveling to anywhere, you can just access the courses on your device and you can get started with your learning. So please feel free to access these free resources and make the most out of them. Additionally, please feel free to register for a demo to get an idea on what our 2-hour private group training on AWS entails. This training will be delivered by our AWS authorized instructors with an agenda of understanding the different AWS services and solutions, and will be beneficial for you to devise a roadmap as per your team's learning needs. So as a learning partner, we highly focus on devising our the learning roadmaps as per your team's understanding or your needs. So we will do our best in order to first understand what the requirements are and then to come up with a roadmap as per the learner's needs. Moving on to our AWS Learning Need Analysis, which is a free self-assessment tool that helps you to identify your organization's cloud skills gap, that includes the participating employees to complete an adaptive e-survey that takes no more than 15 minutes depending on the role. So the idea here is to come up with a targeted and cost-effective training and certification plan which is right for your organization and that also addresses the specific needs of your employees. Next, we have the Learning Passport, which is a flexible team training package specifically designed and customized for the number of learners you have. So the Learning Passport is redeemable across our entire portfolio, which covers more than 4,000 plus official courses, and that is valid over 12 months. Now coming to the Netcom Plus, which is an exciting solution. So Netcom Plus is a learning subscription for our enterprise customers. All you need to do is pay one time and you get unlimited access to authorized training from our top vendors like AWS, Microsoft, Cisco, and more for a span of 12 months. So currently we have 3 packages available. You can get started for free with our silver pack, which allows you access to 300 plus learning modules. You can also upgrade to the gold pack for just $199 and access 400 plus learning modules in addition to the silver pack benefits. And lastly, we highly recommend our most popular offering of all, which is also ideal for our enterprise customers, which is the platinum package of $2,999. And that can be unlocked if you have more than 10 learners. In terms of the benefits, so it gives you the access to 400 plus learning modules and 100 plus virtual instructor-led courses across the top vendors. In addition to our custom programs, do feel free to also go through some of our additional resources, which are curated, keeping the learner's needs, which is your needs in demand. And let us know in the comments if you have any recommendations for us with respect to coming up with any of such assets. Out of our virtual sessions, you can also catch the relevant updates related to IT and business training through our social media handles. So please feel free to follow us for all the latest updates. Moving on. So the CEO of Netcom Learning is an avid reader. So Russell, who is the CEO of Netcom Learning, and you can check out a glimpse of his book, which is a practical, actionable guide on how to boost performance, successfully manage change, and innovate more quickly. So building an innovative learning organization is the book name, and you can check it out. You can download the chapter 1 to go through the summary. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Remy. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. If you haven't yet, it's not too late to pop your questions into the question panel. And as we start our Q&A sessions, we're also going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us to know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register. first question is, what are some choices of data encryption?
Okay, well, thank you for asking that. Now, when we're talking about data encryption, people usually think about encrypting data in motion and encrypting data at rest, right? So that's when the data is moving, you want to encrypt that. And also when data is being stored, you want to encrypt that too, right? So those are two different types of encryption. So with AWS, what you can do with data in motion is to enable TLS. So that would be transport layer security. It used to be called SSL, secure socket layer. So that is the way you encrypt the data as it is traveling across the network. So it's not really AWS thing, right? So SSL TLS has been around for a long time. But what AWS can help you with is that the server that is going to encrypt that data, which is the SSL TLS server, requires something called a certificate. And the certificate actually has the asymmetric key attached to it. And you can use the certificate manager that's available in AWS to create those certificates to help you create your SSL server. Now, for the data at rest, you saw on the example, I did the demonstration on S3, that is all security about data at rest, right? So you can use customer-side encryption, you could use server-side encryption, and you could pick and choose who's going to generate the key. So CSE-C, right? SSE-C, SSE-S3, SSE-KMS. So there you go. So that's basically how you would handle those both types of encryptions. I hope that answers your question.
Our next question is, can I integrate the AWS authentication with my on-premises Active Directory?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think a lot of enterprise customers are already using Active Directory, and they have a legitimate need to say, hey, I don't want to do this separate authentication with AWS when people already have to authenticate with Active Directory. And the answer is, to your question, is yes. AWS actually has several ways that you can integrate your Active Directory on-premises authentication, so you don't have to do double authentication into AWS. The first one, which is I think the simplest one, is to use a AWS service called single sign-on. So AWS actually has a single sign-on that's already kind of geared towards integrating with on-premises Active Directory. So when you use the single sign-on on the AWS side, it already has a way for you to easily connect your Active Directory to AWS, and your users on premises do not have to do anything else. All they have to do is to log into Active Directory, and then that Active Directory is going to communicate with AWS using the single sign-on, which will allow you to, for those users to access AWS resources that you have allowed them to access, as well as external SaaS providers, such as I think they actually have a Salesforce.com. I think that is one of the things that they're integrated with. Box, right, which is another SaaS application where you can store files, and there are others that you can use. Yeah, so I think so that's a simple one. And the other one is, in general, what you're trying to do is something called federated identity management. So you're managing your identity in Active Directory outside of AWS, and then you want to access AWS. So this is called federation. And AWS actually has other ways that you can connect your federation. And you may want to take a look at something called Cognito. So Cognito will allow for non-AWS users to access AWS resources using their own authentication. So those would be my answers for that question. I hope that helps.
Next question in the queue. Is there any threat detection tools provided by AWS?
Oh yeah, they actually have a great threat detection service, which is called Guard Duty. So Guard Duty is where AWS collects all this threat intelligence, what's happening in the world, what kind of attacks are happening. And also AWS actually, has humongous global network themselves, so they're collecting data. So they'll take all this threat information, the latest and greatest from their network, as well as third-party vendor threat detection feeds that AWS has. And then when you turn on this Guard Duty inside your account, AWS will tap into some logs that you have. So One of the log is called the DNS log. So there's something called Route 53, which is a DNS service. So it creates logs, right, of all the people that are trying to access your systems. So they'll take that log. There is another log called CloudTrail. CloudTrail is all your API calls that you're making to all your services. And there's a third log called the VPC flow log, which is a log of information coming in and out of your virtual networks. And then what they'll do is they'll take all your logs and they'll compare with all the threats that they have, and they'll try to see if there are any kind of funny activities or malicious activity that may be happening inside your environment. And if they do find that something that's happening in the world is actually happening inside your account, they will let you know. They'll give you warnings and they'll give you alerts so that you can act on those alerts or not. So that's a great service.
And finally, can I use my on-premises encryption key for encrypting the data stored in AWS cloud?
Oh yeah, definitely, right. So on the demonstration, the first two demonstrations that I showed you, which is customer-side encryption, customer key, and server-side encryption, customer key, are the examples of exactly what you're asking for. So it's the case where regardless of where the actual encryption is being performed, the keys are being provided by the customer. And there's a lot of requirements for it, just like your question. You may already have a bunch of keys already on premises, and you say, hey, I don't need another bunch of set of keys separately on AWS. So in that case, yeah, definitely, you could go ahead and use this customer key option on most of the services that AWS supports. Definitely on S3, but to see exactly which services allows you to do that, you do have to go take a look at the documentation.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.